Have you ever noticed how some of the smartest people in the room still struggle to earn respect? It doesn't matter how much knowledge they have or how right they are somehow, their words just don't land. Meanwhile, others seem to command attention effortlessly. They speak, and everyone goes quiet, not because they shouted, but because there's something about their presence, their composure, that makes people listen. This is a universal experience. You might have been in a heated meeting, at a family gathering, or even scrolling through social media arguments, wondering why logic and facts don't seem to win the day. The truth is, in today's world, many people believe that the loudest voice wins. They argue louder, post more aggressively, or try to dominate every conversation. But ironically, the more they push, the less respect they actually receive. Respect doesn't come from volume. It comes from precision and calmness. It comes from speaking less, but saying more. Imagine walking into a chaotic meeting. Everyone is talking over each other. Voices are rising, tempers are flaring. In that storm of noise, you say just one sentence clearly and calmly, without a trace of anger. Suddenly, the room goes silent. People turn to you, not because you demanded their attention, but because you earned it. That moment is the essence of what the Stoics understood thousands of years ago. True power isn't about overpowering others, it's about mastering yourself. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." He meant that instead of trying to convince others with endless arguments, embody the values you want to see. People will feel it without you needing to say a word. Stoicism teaches that while you can't control other people, their opinions, their moods, their behavior, you can always control your own response. When someone attacks you verbally, when chaos erupts around you, you have a choice to react impulsively, feeding the fire, or to respond with intention and calmness, extinguishing it. This is why the Stoics believe that true strength is calmness under chaos. In our modern world, where shouting matches happen everywhere from boardrooms to Twitter threads, this ancient wisdom is more relevant than ever. It's not about being passive or letting people walk all over you. It's about setting boundaries with clarity, using words like a scalpel instead of a hammer. Think about everyday life. Maybe you've been in a group project at work where everyone has different ideas. One person tries to dominate by speaking the loudest. Another rolls their eyes and stays silent, and eventually, nothing productive happens. Or maybe you've been in a family argument during the holidays, where old tensions surface and everyone talks over each other. In those moments, it's tempting to either fight back with equal intensity or retreat completely. But both choices give away your power. Fighting back makes you part of the chaos. Retreating makes you invisible. The Stoic way offers a third path. Stand firm, stay calm, and speak with deliberate clarity. There's a reason why we admire people who stay composed under pressure. Think of Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement, speaking powerful truths in a calm, steady voice while surrounded by anger and violence. Or picture a skilled athlete like Roger Federer, who doesn't scream or brag on the court, but lets his precise actions speak for themselves. These individuals command respect not because they shout louder, but because their presence radiates control and focus. On a smaller scale, this applies to our daily interactions. You don't need to be famous or a leader of a movement to embody that same energy. Even in a small team meeting or a casual conversation, your calmness can shift the entire atmosphere. Respect is never something you can demand. The moment you beg for it, you've already lost it. People might comply out of fear or obligation, but deep down, they won't genuinely value you. Real respect is commanded through character and consistency. When your words are measured and your emotions are steady, people naturally start to take you seriously. They might not always agree with you, but they'll listen. This is why it's so important to separate emotion from reaction. Most arguments don't fail because of facts, they fail because of ego. The instant someone feels attacked, their walls go up and they stop listening. But if you approach a disagreement with calm understanding, you disarm their defenses before the fight even begins. Let's go back to that chaotic meeting. Example: imagine a coworker proposes a plan that you believe will fail. Most people would either stay silent to avoid conflict or jump in aggressively with, "That's a terrible idea." Both responses are ineffective. Silence implies consent, and aggression invites more aggression. Instead, you lean forward slightly, make eye contact, and say calmly, "I understand your point, but I disagree." In that moment, you've acknowledged their perspective, which earns trust, while also drawing a clear boundary. You didn't raise your voice, but the entire room feels the weight of your words. This is the subtle power of Stoic communication. Another everyday scenario. Someone makes a joke that crosses the line. Maybe it's offensive, maybe it's personal, but everyone else nervously laughs along to avoid awkwardness. If you stay silent, you silently agree. If you attack the person, you risk escalating the tension. Instead, you look them in the eye and say, "I don't find that appropriate." 5 simple words, no anger, no drama. The room shifts instantly. You've not only defended your own dignity, but also given silent permission for others who felt uncomfortable to stand up for themselves too. This is how respect spreads like ripples in water through quiet acts of courage. These moments might seem small, but they add up. Life is full of tiny battles where your composure is tested. A rude stranger cuts in line. A relative criticizes your choices. A friend pressures you to agree with their opinion. Each situation is a chance to either lose respect or gain it. And the tool that decides the outcome is your voice, not just the words you choose, but the tone, the timing, and the self-control behind them. Stoicism gives us a framework to approach these interactions with strength and grace. It reminds us that the only true power we have is over ourselves. When you master that, you no longer need to shout or plead. Your calm presence does the talking. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't just protect you. It also transforms the people around you. When you stay calm in the face of chaos, others notice. They may not change immediately, but they begin to adjust their behavior because you've silently raised the standard. It's like when one person in a crowded room lowers their voice suddenly, everyone else instinctively lowers theirs too. By embodying Stoic principles, you create a ripple effect of respect. And in a world filled with noise, that ripple is revolutionary. So the next time you find yourself in a heated argument, a tense meeting, or a social situation where disrespect hangs in the air, remember this: you don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to win every point to win respect. All you need is the courage to stay calm, the wisdom to choose your words carefully, and the strength to stand firm without losing your composure. As Marcus Aurelius said, stop wasting time arguing about what a good person should be. Just be one. When you do, your actions will speak louder than any argument ever could, and respect will follow naturally. Stoicism, at its core, is a framework for separating what you can control from what you can't, and then channeling all your energy into the former. That single move changes the way you speak under pressure. When you accept that you can't control other people's opinions, moods, or outbursts, but you can control your response, you stop treating conversation like a battlefield and start using language like a precision tool. The Stoics weren't interested in winning arguments. They were interested in mastering themselves. That's why their advice still works in boardrooms, kitchens, group chats, and comment sections. Most of the time, what breaks conversations isn't the lack of facts, it's the collision of egos. The moment someone feels attacked, they stop hearing you. They don't process your evidence, they defend their identity. If your goal is to command respect rather than merely collect wins, you need a posture that makes listening possible again. That posture is composure. Calmness is not passivity. It is control of pace, tone, and timing. It's choosing what to say and what not to say, and it's refusing to be drafted into a game you didn't agree to play. In practice, Stoicism puts a governor on your reactions. You insert a pause between stimulus and response. In that pause, you check, what do I control here? I control my voice, my body language, my words, and whether I continue this conversation. Everything else is noise. That's why Stoic speech sounds simple, clean, and direct. It doesn't reach for grandstanding. It doesn't aim to humiliate. It sets boundaries without drama. It names reality without heat. And precisely because it is not emotionally sloppy, it carries more weight. Think about a familiar workplace scene. A teammate takes a cheap shot in a meeting, something like, well, if we had finished the API on time, we wouldn't be in this mess. If you snap back, your pulse spikes, your voice rises, and the room watches two people. Spow. No one learns. Everyone chooses sides. If you stay silent and stew, you signal that this tone is acceptable and your credibility takes a hit. The Stoic response sits between those extremes. You breathe. You square your shoulders. You answer once, clearly, without edge. You state the relevant fact or redirect to the actual decision. You don't defend your identity, you defend the standard. You model the behavior you want from the room. That's power in silence, not muteness, but restraint. You talk only as much as clarity requires, no more. In everyday life, this looks like choosing sentences that are factual and boundary-setting instead of reactive and barbed. It's the difference between "are you serious right now?" and "I don't find that appropriate." One invites a fight. The other closes a door without slamming it. Stoicism focuses you on outcomes. Do you want to feel vindicated for 5 seconds or move the situation forward? If you want movement, you need the other person's nervous system to come down a notch. Calm voice, steady eyes, relaxed shoulders, these cues to escalate. People mirror the emotional energy in the room. When you hold yours, you often regulate theirs. That is how composure turns into influence. The philosophy also reframes dignity. We tend to think respect is something others give us. The Stoics flip it. Respect begins with how you treat yourself. Seneca's line captures it cleanly. He who respects himself will be respected by others. If you respect yourself, you do not sell dignity for approval. You do not laugh along with what you know is wrong just to keep the peace. You do not explain your boundaries with a 3-minute apology. You state them and stand in them. That stance is felt. People test limits all the time at work, in families, online, often unconsciously. Your calm boundary is a signal that teaches them how to treat you. It's also a gift to bystanders who feel the same discomfort but don't yet have the words. The psychological mechanics here are straightforward. In conflict, threat perception shoots up and the brain goes into defense mode. If you attack, you confirm the threat. If you appease, you reward the behavior. Stoic speech does neither. It acknowledges reality, removes heat, and proposes a healthier frame. That's why phrases that begin with recognition, "I understand your point," work so well. They tell the other person, "You're not invisible," which lowers the shield just enough for your next sentence to land. The trick is not to surrender your position in the process. Recognition first, boundaries second, and no moral lecture in between. Watch how that plays out in a kitchen table argument about money. A sibling insists you're being selfish for not chipping in more for a trip. You can blast them for entitlement or shut down and avoid the trip entirely. Or you can say, calmly, "I see why you want everyone to contribute equally. I'm not able to do that, and I won't debate my budget." You've validated the desire. You've set a line. You've refused the invitation to litigate your life. If they push, you repeat once and in the conversation. You didn't win, but you preserve the relationship and your peace. That's a Stoic victory, self-command over scoreboard. Another place this matters is online, where arguments are designed to spike your adrenaline. If you let someone drag you into an endless back and forth, you've already lost your evening and your focus. A Stoic approach is to answer once in good faith or not at all. If you do engage, you use cool, declarative language. "I respect your view. I don't share it." No sarcasm, no subtweets, no call-out theatrics. You say your piece and you walk away. Paradoxically, this often earns you more respect from neutral observers than a thread of witty takedowns ever could. They see discipline. They see someone who values time. That's compelling. Notice how often the problem in conflict is not content, but posture. Two people can hold opposite views and still leave a conversation with mutual respect if both protect their tone and boundaries. But when ego drives, tone collapses first. You start generalizing, you always, mind reading, you just want to, and scorekeeping, last time. Those are tells that you've ceded control to emotion. Stoic speech prunes those habits. It stays with specifics. It avoids diagnosing motives. It does not build a case file. It asks, what is the decision in front of us? What's the smallest true thing I can say that moves us toward it? That discipline keeps you from becoming the kind of person who needs to win every exchange. It also keeps you from dissolving into niceness that accepts everything to avoid discomfort. Stoicism isn't cruelty and it isn't compliance. It is principled clarity under pressure. If you've ever watched a seasoned nurse handle an irate patient's family member, you've seen this in action. She doesn't match their volume or offer false promises. She says, evenly, I hear that you're scared and frustrated. Here's what I can do right now. Here's what I can't do. The family may not like the limits, but they trust the honesty. Over time, that trust is respect. The same pattern applies in customer service, youth sports, and classroom management. The adult who stays composed, names the boundary, and repeats it without extra charge language becomes the anchor. In the room, everyone else unconsciously orients to that anchor. Your body is part of the message. Words do not float free of posture. If your sentences are clean, but your face is tight and your shoulders are hunched, people hear the tension anyway. Stoic practice includes the body, slower breathing, lower volume, neutral phrasing, longer pauses. You are telling the other person and your own nervous system this is not an emergency. That embodied calm unlocks your best language. It also gives you the strength to exit when needed. Not every conversation deserves to continue. You are not obligated to offer infinite explanations to someone arguing in bad faith or someone who refuses basic respect. Ending a conversation is not a tantrum. It's a boundary that protects both parties from doing damage. When you say, I prefer not to continue this conversation, and then you actually stop, you teach people that access to your attention is contingent on mutual respect. Over time, that standard elevates the quality of interactions you attract. None of this means you never feel anger or hurt. Stoicism doesn't delete emotion, it disciplines it. You feel the spike and choose not to perform it. You let the first wave pass before you speak. You draft your sentence in your head, shave off the accusation, and leave the fact. You don't suppress, you shape. The payoff is cumulative. The first time you try this, your voice might shake. The 10th time, you'll be steady. The 100th time, others will anticipate your standard and adjust before they even open their mouths. That is how a personal philosophy becomes a cultural force in your team, your home, or your friend group. If you want a quick test of whether your language is stoic, ask 2 questions. Does this sentence protect my dignity without attacking theirs? Does it move the conversation forward or merely scratch my ego itch? If the answer to the first is yes and the second is forward, you're on the right track. You'll also notice that the simpler the sentence, the stronger it lands. Long explanations often read like insecurity. Short, neutral statements read like conviction. You can see this dynamic in high-stakes negotiations. Professionals who do this well avoid filler, avoid justifying, and avoid rapid-fire rebuttals. They let silence work. They don't fear pause. Silence, used well, is not emptiness, it's pressure. It invites the other side to reflect, to clarify, or to soften. That is the power in silence. The video points to the ability to influence tempo and tone without adding more words. There's a humility to this approach that's easy to miss. By focusing on what you control, you accept that you won't fix every misunderstanding or convert every critic. You give up the fantasy of total persuasion. Instead, you aim for integrity, to say only what is necessary and true, to keep your center when others lose theirs, and to leave even hard conversations without self-betrayal. That humility makes you a safer person to talk to. People begin to bring you problems because they know you won't explode or collapse. Respect follows reliability. The more consistent your reactions, the more predictable your presence becomes, and the more influence you gain. The mini example makes the point cleanly. A coworker insults you in front of others. If you bark back, you look thin-skinned and you teach everyone that pressing your buttons is easy. If you swallow it, you teach them that your boundaries are soft. If you look up, meet their eyes, and say evenly, "I'm not okay with that," or "let's keep it respectful," you force a recalibration. You didn't escalate. You didn't retreat. You set the standard in a single beat. People remember that. Over time, they police themselves around you not out of fear, but out of clarity. That is the essence of Stoic communication. Clarity without cruelty, restraint without resignation, strength without spectacle. The 5 phrases that follow are just expressions of this foundation. They work because they are rooted in the dichotomy of control, the separation of ego from truth, and the discipline to keep your center when others lose theirs. With that foundation set, it's natural to move into practical tools each phrase. A compact way to draw a line, defend your dignity, and invite better conversation without burning the room down. With this base, we can now look at 5 specific sentences that embody the philosophy and let you carry it into real life. Concise, calm, and impossible to ignore. The first powerful phrase is, "I understand your point, but I disagree." At first glance, it sounds simple, even ordinary, but the structure of this sentence holds deep psychological power. By starting with acknowledgement, you disarm the other person's defenses. Most arguments spiral out of control, not because of the actual issue, but because people feel unheard or disrespected. The moment you say, "You're wrong," or "That's ridiculous," you trigger their ego, and they stop listening. They shift into battle mode. By saying, "I understand your point," you're telling them, "I've heard you, and I respect that you have a perspective." This lowers their emotional guard and creates space for dialogue. Then, by adding, "But I disagree," you calmly assert your independence without hostility. This is the Stoic ideal in action, separating emotion from judgment. You are standing firm while remaining calm and collected. Imagine a team meeting at work. A colleague presents a plan you know has major flaws and could hurt the project. Most people would either stay silent to avoid conflict or react harshly, saying, "That won't work at all." Both approaches backfire. Silence implies consent, while aggression creates enemies. Instead, you lean forward slightly, make steady eye contact, and say, "I understand your point, but I disagree." In that moment, the room shifts. You're no longer just another voice. You're someone who is independent, thoughtful, and not afraid to set boundaries. You've also left the door open for discussion rather than war. This works in personal life too. Think of a couple debating household finances. Rather than saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "I understand why you feel that way, but I see it differently." That small tweak keeps the conversation productive rather than destructive. Marcus Aurelius would call this mastery of self, a refusal to let passion overtake reason. The calmer you hold your ground, the more others will trust your judgment. Over time, people begin to see you as someone who cannot be pushed around, not because you shout, but because you speak with quiet authority. The second phrase, "I don't find that appropriate," is a boundary-setting powerhouse. Sometimes the most powerful response is also the shortest. This 5-word sentence ends disrespect before it takes root. In many social situations, when someone crosses a line, makes an offensive joke, belittles someone, or behaves rudely most, people laugh, nervously, or stay silent. That silence sends a subtle message. It's okay to treat me this way. Over time, your silence becomes consent. This phrase disrupts that pattern. When you calmly say, "I don't find that appropriate," you draw a clear, unmistakable line without yelling or moralizing. It's direct, firm, and leaves no room for misunderstanding. Picture a dinner party where someone makes a cruel joke at another person's expense. The group chuckles uncomfortably, waiting for the moment to pass. Instead of going along, you take a breath, meet their eyes, and say, "I don't find that appropriate." The room goes quiet. The laughter fades. Without attacking or humiliating anyone, you've shifted the entire dynamic. Others who felt the same discomfort silently thank you, and even the offender is forced to reconsider their behavior. Seneca famously said, "He who respects himself will be respected by others." This phrase is that truth in action. By refusing to join in disrespect, you model self-respect, and others adjust accordingly. It's especially effective because it's not about shaming the other person. It's about stating your boundary clearly. You don't need to justify or over-explain. The calmness of your delivery carries more weight than a long speech ever could. In everyday life, this phrase protects your dignity in countless ways, from shutting down gossip at work to stopping a stranger's rudeness in public. It signals to the world, "I have standards, and I will not compromise them for approval." The third phrase, "Let's talk when we can do so respectfully," is designed for moments when conversations turn into shouting matches. There are times when dialogue stops being dialogue and becomes a contest of who can dominate the room. Voices rise, interruptions fly, and every word feels like a weapon. Most people make one of two mistakes in this situation. They either fight back with equal aggression, adding more fuel to the fire, or they retreat completely, feeling defeated. Stoicism offers a third path. Instead of shouting or shrinking, you pause, breathe, and calmly say, "Let's talk when we can. Do so respectfully." This sentence does something remarkable. It changes the rules of the game. You refuse to play on their terms. You're not running away, but you're also not rewarding disrespect with your attention. Imagine a heated argument with a partner or close friend. Emotions are running high, and neither of you is really listening. If you keep pushing, you'll likely say something you regret. If you walk out silently, they may think you don't care. But when you calmly say, "Let's talk when we can do so respectfully," you create a pause button. You're signaling that you value the relationship enough to come back later, but only under better conditions. This works in professional settings too. A coworker raises their voice in a meeting, trying to dominate the conversation. Rather than matching their tone, you simply say, "Let's talk when we can do so respectfully." The room falls quiet because you've just taken control of the interaction without aggression. Epictetus taught, "You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control your response." This phrase is that wisdom brought to life. It protects your peace while subtly encouraging others to rise to your standard. The beauty of this approach is that it's not about winning the moment. It's about preserving long-term respect and dignity, both for yourself and for the relationship. The fourth phrase, "I prefer not to continue this conversation," is about knowing when to walk away. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every conversation deserves your energy. There are moments when words stop seeking truth and start chasing victory. The other person isn't interested in resolution, they want domination, to trap you, to pull you into their chaos. Most people fall into this trap by arguing longer and louder, burning hours of emotional energy, proving a point that doesn't need proving. But true strength is knowing when to step back. When you calmly say, "I prefer not to continue this conversation," you're closing a door not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Consider a political debate with a relative at a holiday dinner. You've gone back and forth for 20 minutes, and it's clear they're not listening. They're repeating the same points, trying to provoke you. Instead of taking the bait, you smile slightly and say, "I'd prefer not to continue this conversation." Then you change the subject or excuse yourself. The tension breaks because you've refused to play their game. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." By walking away, you've refused to mirror their anger. You've chosen dignity over drama. This phrase is especially important in toxic work environments or abusive relationships, where continuing the dialogue only harms you. It's a reminder that you are not chained to every argument. You have the right and the duty to protect your mental and emotional energy. Walking away doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've seen clearly that the battle itself was meaningless. In a world that glorifies constant engagement, this quiet act of refusal is radical self-care. The fifth and final phrase, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it," is about balancing respect for others with respect for yourself. We live in a world overflowing with opinions. Everyone has ideas about how you should live, work, love, and think. Too often, these opinions are forced on us like chains. Most people respond in one of two ways. They either fight, arguing point by point and exhausting themselves, or they bend, nodding along just to keep the peace. Both options erode your sense of self. Stoicism offers a third way. You listen, you acknowledge, and then you calmly declare your independence. This phrase is firm without being hostile, polite without being submissive. It tells the world, I can honor your right to speak without surrendering my right to think. Picture a family scenario. Your parents want you to follow a particular career path, maybe to become a doctor or lawyer, because they believe it's best for you. You have a different dream. Instead of exploding in anger or silently complying, you say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." This approach maintains love and respect while holding firm to your own path. In the workplace, this phrase protects you from manipulative colleagues who try to pressure you into decisions you don't agree with. On social media, it's the perfect antidote to endless comment wars. Rather than getting sucked into a spiral of replies, you state your position once and move on. Seneca warned, being a slave to the opinions of others is the worst of prisons. This phrase is your key to freedom. It reminds you that you can coexist peacefully with those who disagree without betraying yourself. People may not always like your stance, but they will respect the courage it takes to stand alone, calmly, and gracefully. When you look at these 5 phrases together, a clear pattern emerges. Each one helps you separate emotion from reaction. You don't fight fire with fire. Instead, you respond with clarity and self-control. They also establish boundaries, teaching others how to treat you without a single lecture. Most importantly, they project self-respect. And self-respect always precedes external respect. These phrases are not magic spells. They require practice, patience, and courage. The first time you use them, your voice might shake. The second time, you'll be steadier. Over time, they become part of your natural way of speaking. In a world where shouting is common and silence is misread as weakness, calm, deliberate words are revolutionary. These sentences become both sword and shield, cutting through noise while protecting your inner peace. They are proof that you don't need to demand respect loudly. You can command it quietly, one conversation at a time. Modern life gives you 1,000 small tests a day, and most of them are social. The meeting that gets loud, the boss who barks when stressed, the joke that goes too far at lunch, the partner who raises their voice when they feel unheard, the relative who pushes their agenda, the stranger who gets rude. Because they're having a bad day, the online thread baiting you into a spiral. The power of the 5 phrases is that they translate Stoic composure into concrete moves you can make in each of these situations. The point isn't to win the moment. The point is to conserve energy, raise the standard, and keep your dignity intact while getting better outcomes. You don't need special charisma to do this. You need a plan, rehearsed language, steady tone, and the discipline to use them when your pulse climbs. Start with the workplace, because that's where stakes and egos collide most predictably. In meetings, your best leverage is tone and sequence. When your boss is hot and the room is tense, you don't match heat. You slow down. If an idea is racing toward a risky decision, you step in with, "I understand your point, but I disagree." That single sentence does 3 things at once. It acknowledges the speaker, signals an objection, and invites attention without inviting a fight. Follow it with one short reason and one next step. I'm worried the timeline underestimates testing risk. I propose a 2-day spike to confirm assumptions. No assess. No biography of the problem. Calm fact, concrete path. If your boss snaps back, we don't have time for that. Don't take the bait. Repeat once. Understood. I still disagree on the risk profile. A 2-day spike reduces the chance of a costly rollback. If the temperature rises again, switch to, let's talk when we can do so respectfully. That line is not a power play. It's a circuit breaker. You're signaling that the conversation's quality matters as much as the decision. Most leaders will reset in real time once they realize they're losing the room by pushing too hard. Peer dynamics benefit just as much from simple boundaries. When a teammate takes a shot, if the backend had shipped on time, we'd be fine. You don't litigate history. You don't swing back with your own jab. You look up and say evenly, I don't find that appropriate. Then pause. Silence does the rest. If they mumble a half apology or try to pivot, accept the pivot and move the discussion forward. Let's stay on decisions we can make today. Over time, this trains the team that snark dies quickly around you. Not because you're thin-skinned, but because you won't feed it. When a colleague keeps pushing a method you don't agree with, skip the long debate. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Then describe your choice. I'll proceed with approach B and share results Friday. Notice the pattern, recognize, draw a line, propose movement. You're not trying to convert them. You're protecting momentum and your standards. Remote work adds another twist. In Slack or email, people misread tone and overreact. When a thread gets sharp, don't type faster, type cleaner. I see the concern about scope. I disagree with the assumption that QA can be compressed. Let's talk when we can do so respectfully. Suggest a short call with an agenda. If someone pings you a wall of messages past midnight demanding answers, you don't reward the pressure. Reply the next morning with a concise plan. If they escalate, use, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation, and involve a neutral third party for process, not punishment. The discipline here is to treat your attention as an asset. You invest it where there's good faith and shared standards. You don't spend it where the cost is your peace. Career growth moments benefit from the same. Toolkit. In a performance review where feedback feels unfair, resist the urge to correct the record line by line. I understand your point, but I disagree with the conclusion. Then offer one clear data point and a request. My Q2 outcomes included X and Y. I'd appreciate a specific plan for expectations in Q3. If the reviewer gets defensive, bring the frame back. Let's talk when we can do so. Respectfully, I want to leave with clear next steps. You are not being passive. You are directing the conversation back to outcomes. That's how trust is built in environments where emotions run hot. You become the person who returns the room to facts and forward motion. Shift to home, where respect and love often get tangled. Boundaries are not weapons in relationships. They're guardrails that keep both people safe. The sentence that anchors many hard talks is, I value us, but I also value myself. Use it when chores, money, or in-laws become recurring trigger points. If a disagreement starts to spin, say, let's talk when we can do so respectfully. That sentence protects the relationship from words neither of you can take back. It's not avoidance. It's a commitment to a better version of the same conversation. When pressure shows up as control, you should do it my way, try. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Then make a clean ask. Here's what I'm going to do, and here's when we can revisit if it's not working. The key is to remove courtroom theatrics. No cross-examination, no 5 exhibits from last year. Stay in the present. Protect the bond by protecting the boundary. With extended family, you'll often face the I know what's best for you energy. At a holiday dinner, someone may push career advice or personal life commentary that crosses into judgment. You don't need a speech. I understand why you feel strongly about that, but I disagree. If they keep pressing, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. If they get louder, cut the loop. I prefer not to continue this conversation. Then actually stop. Stand up to refill water, switch seats, help in the kitchen, anything that signals the topic is closed. Done consistently. These moves train even the most persistent relatives to route around you when they're in the mood to meddle. Part of loving people well is not joining them in their least disciplined moments. Parenting and co-parenting call for the same steadiness. When a co-parent uses a harsh tone in front of the kids, you don't mirror it. Let's talk when we can. Do so respectfully. We can pick this up after bedtime. Later in private. I understand your frustration, but I disagree with handling it that way. Next time, let's align before we speak to them. You're modeling the exact behavior you want your children to copy. Calm boundary, no public shaming, private repair. With teens who test limits for sport, go short and neutral. I don't find that appropriate. If they push, don't escalate with volume. Escalate with clarity. Privileges, expectations, consequences. The power lives in your consistency, not your decibels. Online life is engineered to drag you into unproductive exchanges. Your best move is one reply or none. When someone argues in bad faith, that's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. Then mute the thread. If a commenter slides into insults, you don't sharpen your elbows. You raise the floor. I don't find that appropriate. Report or block if needed. If a friend DMs you an essay demanding you answer right now, remember, urgency is rarely your responsibility. I see your message. I disagree with your premise. Let's talk when we can do so respectfully. If they keep firing, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation. Respect for yourself online looks like protecting your time, your attention, and your nervous system. You're not obligated to be perpetually available to anyone's adrenaline. Encounters with strangers can flip your day and your composure if you let them. The cashier who snaps at you, the driver who yells, the person who cuts. The line, these are rehearsals for self-control. Safety first, always. If there's a hint of threat, leave. If it's just rudeness, don't moralize. Use 5 clean words. I don't find that appropriate. Then disengage. You're not the internet's referee. You are a person choosing not to marinate in other people's cortisol. When a salesperson won't let you go, I'd prefer not to continue this conversation and walk away. Don't justify. Don't apologize. The more you explain, the more hooks you give them to pull you back in. On the subway or in a lobby where someone tries to bait you into. A scene eye contact, neutral tone. Let's keep it respectful. If they escalate, exit. You're not losing. You're refusing to pay anger tax to a stranger. A day can easily contain all of these. Micro moments. Morning stand-up where a teammate's tone is off. A lunch where someone's humor punches down. An afternoon Slack thread that turns edgy. A commute with a loud complaint hurled your way. A check-in with your partner where you're both tired and sensitive. Each one is a chance to surrender your mood or to assert it. The phrases are not magic, but they're reliable. They give you a first sentence when adrenaline would normally give you none. The art is in delivery. Keep your voice low, your sentences short, your shoulders relaxed, and your gaze steady. Don't decorate the line. Don't add a second sentence that dilutes the first. And don't ask questions that invite debate when what you need is a boundary. Here's how a full workday might sound when you practice. 9 with 10 morgens. A teammate blames your team for a slip. I don't find that appropriate. Pause. Let's focus on the fix. 11:30 a.m. Your manager shoots down your proposal sharply. I understand your point, but I disagree. A short spike reduces risk. If the tone stays sharp, let's talk when we can do so respectfully. 2:15 p.m. Slack thread devolves. I respect your view. I don't share it. Summarizing my position above. Stepping out now. 4:40 p.m. A vendor calls 3 times in a row. I prefer not to continue this conversation. Please email a proposal. 6:30 p.m. Partner starts a tense topic while you're both hungry. I value us, and I want to do this right. Let's talk when we can do so respectfully after dinner. In each case, you set the temperature. You don't let the room choose it for you. In family life, the practice is similar but softer around the edges. When a loved one jokes at your expense, don't reward it with a laugh that hurts you. I don't find that appropriate. If they reply, relax, it was a joke, you don't take the bait. I get that. I still don't find it appropriate. Then change the subject. When a parent insists they know your path better than you do, don't go to war or disappear. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it. If they push, I prefer not to continue this conversation. Then pivot to something you can enjoy together. Love thrives with boundaries. love dies with contempt. If you lead people, these phrases are even more critical because your reactions set culture. When two reports bring tension into a one-on-one, cut blame loops quickly. Let's talk when we can do so respectfully. Start with facts, not motives. When someone critiques you harshly in public, don't defend your ego. Defend the standard. I understand your point, but I disagree with raising it this way. Bring it in our next retro. Leaders who can absorb heat without throwing it back create teams that run cooler and think clearer. That is not softness, it's discipline. The highest performing groups protect tone because tone protects cognition. There will be moments when someone refuses your boundary. That's where repetition and consequence meet. Repeat once exactly as written. If they still push, you in the interaction leave the room, in the call, or stop typing. You don't argue about whether your boundary is valid. You act as if it is. Over time, those around you learn how to engage with you, or they lose access to your attention. Both outcomes serve your peace. Two traps will try to pull you off course. The first is over-explaining. You'll be tempted to add a paragraph to make it clear or be nice. Don't. Clarity is kind. Brevity is clarity. The second is sarcasm, which feels powerful in the moment and poisons trust long-term. These phrases work because they carry no extra charge. You are not punishing, you are choosing. You are not trying to feel superior. You're trying to be steady. When you feel your chest tighten, that's your cue to go shorter, slower, simpler. Used consistently, the 5 sentences become more than tactics. They become a personal policy. In offices where shouting is normal, you become the exception people rely on to steady the ship. In families where teasing turns to cutting, you become the person who gently raises the floor. Online, you become unhookable. You say your piece once and get back to your actual life. With strangers, you move through the world with less friction because you don't donate your mood to random. Volatility. The win is not that you never face disrespect again. The win is that disrespect stops deciding your day. If you want quick practice, pick one phrase to use 3 times this week. Write it on a sticky note or a phone lock screen. Rehearse it out loud once in a neutral moment so it's ready in a charged one. Notice how your body feels when you say it and how the room changes. The feedback loop will teach you faster than any book. Calm words, steady tone, clear boundaries, those are the levers that make modern life lighter. The circumstances won't get simpler, but your method will. And when your method is consistent, respect becomes the byproduct, not the target. Maya had always been known as a diligent and kind project manager. She worked hard, stayed late to make sure everyone's deadlines were met, and often smoothed over conflicts by taking on extra work herself. But beneath that helpfulness was a quiet fear. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of confrontation. Fear of being labeled as difficult. In meetings, she would sit silently even when she knew a plan was flawed. She told herself it wasn't worth the trouble, that maybe she was wrong, but that someone else would speak up. Over time, this habit made her invisible. Her team saw her as dependable, but not as a leader. One day, a critical project review meeting was held with senior executives present. A new proposal was introduced that, on the surface, sounded exciting. The slides were polished, the presenter was confident, and most of the room nodded along. But as Maya reviewed the details, she saw a glaring problem. If the plan moved forward as presented, it would create technical debt so severe that the team would face massive failures later. She felt her pulse quicken. The old pattern began. Stay quiet, don't upset anyone, just go along. Then she remembered something she had been practicing in her personal growth journey, a simple Stoic phrase: I understand your point, but I disagree. When the moment came, she took a slow breath, sat up straight, and in a calm, steady voice said, I understand your point, but I disagree. The room fell silent. Heads turned. Her tone wasn't aggressive, but it had weight. She then added, here's why I think this approach is risky, and I'd like to propose a way to mitigate that. No anger, no blame, just facts and clarity. The shift was immediate. Instead of defensive pushback, people leaned in to listen. The presenter, surprised but not attacked, asked questions. The executives asked for more details. Within minutes, the entire direction of the meeting shifted. The flawed plan was paused for review, and the project was saved from disaster. For Mai, the experience was transformative. She realized that respect doesn't come from silence or from shouting. It comes from the ability to calmly stand for what you know is right. In that moment, her courage didn't just save the project, it changed how her colleagues saw her. They began to view her as a leader, someone who brought clarity and balance to the team. Her self-respect radiated outward, and others responded with trust and admiration. This story illustrates a key Stoic lesson. Separating emotion from reaction creates space for influence. By removing ego from her words, Mai allowed the truth of her message to shine through. A different kind of courage was required in Hung's story. Hung grew up in a close-knit family where comparisons were constant. At every family gathering, his relatives would praise his cousin, who had achieved traditional success, a prestigious job, a big house, a picture-perfect family. Hung, who had chosen a less conventional path as an artist, was often the target of subtle digs. When will you get a real job like your cousin? Why can't you be more like him? At first, Hung tried to defend himself. He argued passionately about the value of creativity, about following one's dreams, about how success is more than money. These arguments always ended badly raised voices, hurt feelings, and a deeper wedge between him and his family. Other times, he stayed silent, swallowing his frustration while resentment built inside him. Neither approach worked. Then Hung learned another Stoic phrase: "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." The next time the familiar comparison came up, Hung felt the usual anger rise, but he paused, looking calmly at his uncle. He said, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it." His voice was even, his body relaxed. The room went quiet, not from shock, but from clarity. There was no fight, no escalation, just a clear statement of boundaries. His uncle blinked, unsure how to respond, and eventually changed the subject. Over time, Hung used this phrase consistently. His family began to realize that while they could have their views, they could no longer push them onto him. Their conversations shifted from judgment to curiosity. Instead of, "Why don't you live like your cousin?" they began to ask, "Tell us about your latest project." This story shows that respect doesn't always mean agreement. By respecting his family's right to hold their beliefs while calmly asserting his own independence, Hung transformed a battlefield into a bridge. He didn't try to change their minds, and he didn't betray himself. That balance is the essence of Stoic practice, living your truth without needing to control anyone else. Both of these stories reveal a deeper principle. True respect begins with self-respect. When you honor your own boundaries and values, others are more likely to honor them too. Seneca's wisdom comes alive here. He who respects himself will be respected by others. In Mai's case, self-respect meant speaking up despite fear. In Hung's case, it meant refusing to fight or submit, choosing instead to stand firm with grace. These are very different contexts, one professional, one personal, but the underlying courage is the same. It's about claiming your own ground without trampling on someone else's. Another layer of insight comes from examining why calmness is so powerful. In heated situations, emotions spread like wildfire. Neuroscience calls this emotional contagion. If one person shouts, others instinctively raise their voices. If one person stays calm, they can lower the emotional temperature of the entire room. This is why Stoic composure often feels like quiet magic. When Mai spoke softly in a tense meeting, she wasn't just managing herself. She was leading the group back to rationality. When Hung stayed relaxed while asserting his boundary, he prevented the usual cycle of escalation. In both cases, calmness became a form of leadership. Consider a more universal example. Imagine you're in a crowded grocery store. Someone cuts in front of you in line and snaps, "Hurry up." The natural impulse is to snap back. But if you take a breath and say, I don't find that appropriate, in a neutral tone, you change the dynamic. You're not rewarding their aggression, but you're also not sinking to their level. Often, the person will back down, embarrassed by their own behavior. Even if they don't, you've kept your peace. You've chosen dignity over drama. This same principle applies online. When someone posts a rude comment or starts an argument, you can either engage endlessly or simply respond. That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it, and then move on. The calm response isn't just about protecting yourself. It also shows others that there's another way to engage. These practices are not easy. The first time you try them, your voice might shake. You might replay the moment later, wishing you'd said more or less. That's okay. Mastery comes from repetition. The more you practice these phrases, the more natural they become. Over time, you'll notice a shift not only in how others treat you, but also in how you see yourself. You'll start to feel a quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need constant validation. This is the heart of Stoicism, freedom through self-mastery. The lessons from these stories are timeless. First, self-respect is the foundation of all respect. If you don't value yourself, you'll either chase approval endlessly or accept mistreatment silently. By setting clear boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. Second, calmness is the ultimate strength. Anyone can yell. Anyone can storm out. It takes real power to stay centered when others lose control. Calmness doesn't mean weakness. It means you're strong enough to choose your response rather than be ruled by impulse. Third, boundaries are a form of love. When you say, I won't accept this behavior, you're not just protecting yourself. You're also giving the other person a chance to grow. Without boundaries, relationships become chaotic and destructive. With boundaries, they become safe and sustainable. Think about a romantic relationship. Partners who never fight aren't necessarily healthy. Often, they're just avoiding issues. Partners who fight constantly are obviously in trouble. The healthiest couples know how to disagree respectfully. When voices start to rise, one person might say, let's talk when we can do so respectfully. That pause doesn't kill intimacy, it protects. It says, I care about us enough to step back until we can both show up as our best selves. This same principle applies to friendships, coworkers, even interactions with strangers. Respectful boundaries create environments where everyone can thrive. Sometimes, people misunderstand Stoic calmness as coldness. They think it means suppressing feelings or being detached. In reality, Stoicism is about feeling deeply while responding wisely. Ma didn't stop caring about her team when she spoke up. She cared so much that she risked discomfort to prevent harm. Hung didn't stop loving his family when he refused to fight. He loved them enough to break the cycle of conflict. True calmness is warm. It's grounded in compassion, but guided by clarity. These lessons ripple outward. When you practice them, others notice. A coworker sees how you handle criticism gracefully and decides to try the same. A friend observes how you defuse a tense situation and feels empowered to set their own boundaries. Even strangers are affected. The world is full of silent watchers, people who crave a better way but don't know how to begin. When you model calm strength, you give them permission to follow. In a sense, every interaction is a tiny teaching moment. You can teach people to expect drama, or you can teach them to expect respect. The 5 phrases are tools for teaching the latter. They are not magic spells. They're practices. Like any practice, they grow stronger with use. Each time you choose calmness over chaos, you reinforce your identity as someone who commands respect rather than demands it. At the end of the day, both Ma and Hung face the same choice we all face daily: to react or to respond. Reaction is automatic. It's driven by ego, fear, and old habits. Response is intentional. It's shaped by values, reflection, and courage. The distance between those two is the space where freedom lives. The Stoics teach us to widen that space, to breathe before speaking, to let wisdom guide our words. When we do, our lives become not just calmer, but richer. We stop being tossed around by every rude comment or heated moment. Instead, we become anchors in a stormy world. Respect isn't about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself so fully that others can't help but respond in kind. Mai's calm voice in that meeting saved a project and inspired a team. Hung's gentle boundary transformed a family conversation into mutual understanding. These victories may seem small, but they ripple outward, shaping workplaces, families, and communities. Every time you choose calm clarity over chaos, you plant a seed. Over time, those seeds grow into a culture of respect. One conversation, one boundary, one breath at a time. Respect is not something you can demand, threaten, or beg for. It is something you build every single day through your character, your choices, and the way you carry yourself when life tests you. The 5 phrases you just learned are not tricks to win arguments or clever comebacks to shut people down. They are tools for protecting your inner peace and preserving your dignity when the world around you feels chaotic. They're not about proving you're right or making someone else look wrong. They are about standing tall in your own truth without needing to destroy anyone else's. Respect is not forced. It is earned by the calmness of your voice, the steadiness of your actions, and the strength of your boundaries. Think about how many times in the past week you've been pulled into conversations that left you feeling drained or upset. Maybe it was a heated meeting at work, a family disagreement that spiraled out of control, or a random stranger's rude comment that ruined your mood for hours. Each of those moments was a chance to either lose your peace or to claim it. When you use these 5 phrases, you shift the dynamic completely. Instead of being reactive, you become intentional. Instead of adding to the noise, you become the calm center others look to for stability. You stop playing the game of trying to win and start living a life where you don't need to compete for respect because you carry it within you. Imagine walking into your next team meeting knowing you don't have to shout to be heard. Picture yourself at a family dinner where old patterns of judgment used to trigger you, but now you have the words to respond without anger. Envision scrolling through social media and seeing a controversial comment, but not feeling the urge to fight back because you know you can simply say, "That's your opinion, and I respect it, but I don't share it," and then move on with your life. These aren't just words. They are acts of courage. They are choices that slowly transform your relationships, your work environment, and even how you feel about yourself. The beauty of these phrases is their simplicity. You don't need to memorize complicated scripts or plan dramatic speeches. You just need to choose one phrase and commit to using it this week. It might feel awkward at first. Your voice might shake. That's okay. Growth always feels uncomfortable at the beginning. What matters is taking the first step. When you use one of these phrases, you're not just speaking to the other person, you're reminding yourself of who you are and what you stand for. Every time you calmly set a boundary, you reinforce your self-respect. And as Seneca taught, when you respect yourself, others will naturally follow. This is your challenge. Pick one phrase that resonated with you the most. Maybe it's, "I understand your point, but I disagree," for those tough conversations at work. Maybe it's, "I don't find that appropriate," to shut down disrespect. Maybe it's, "Let's talk when we can do so respectfully," to reset arguments before they spiral. Whatever it is, practice saying it out loud right now. Hear how it sounds in your own voice. Then, when life gives you the next opportunity, you'll be ready. After you try it, come back and share your experience in the comments with a simple pledge. I choose respect. Those 3 words aren't just a statement. They're a commitment to yourself and an inspiration to others who are struggling with the same challenges. Think about the ripple effect this could have. If even a handful of people watching this video decide to practice these phrases, entire workplaces could become calmer. Families could experience less drama and more understanding. Social media could feel a little less toxic. It starts with one person making one choice in one conversation. That's how cultural change begins, not with massive speeches or sweeping reforms, but with everyday acts of courage. You might not see the impact immediately, but over time, people will notice. They'll start to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. When you embody this kind of calm strength, you inspire others to do the same. Someone who sees you calmly handle conflict might think, if they can do it, maybe I can too. Someone who watches you set a boundary without anger might finally feel permission to set their own. Respect spreads like that quietly, powerfully, one interaction at a time. And when enough people choose respect over chaos, entire communities begin to shift. So here's the invitation. Don't just listen to this video and move on with your day. Take action. Choose one phrase and one situation this week where you will put it into practice. Then, share your pledge in the comments. I choose respect. Your words might give someone else the courage to do the same. And if you found value in this message, help us spread it. Like this video so others can find it. Share it with someone who might be struggling with conflict or disrespect in their life. Subscribe to this channel so you can continue to grow in wisdom and strength with a community of people on the same journey. And if you want to go even further, consider supporting through Super Thanks. Your contribution helps us create more content that brings Stoic wisdom into everyday life, reaching people who need it most. Remember, these 5 phrases are more than techniques. They are daily practices of self-mastery. They remind you that your power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling yourself. They show you that you can face disrespect without losing your dignity, that you can walk through chaos without losing your peace. Each time you speak one of these sentences, you're building a life of quiet strength. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until one day, people will look at you and say, there's something different about them. They don't just talk about respect, they live it. So take a breath, choose your phrase, and take your first step. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs calm voices, clear boundaries, and people courageous enough to lead by example. You have everything you need to be one of those people. This week, let your words reflect your strength, and let your strength invite others to rise. And when you type, I choose respect in the comments, know that you're not just making a statement, you're joining a movement toward a more respectful, more peaceful world.